We're going to start with the men. Djokovic gone, injured. Wawrinka was unbelievable in that game.
Yeah, absolutely. We know that he's got the ability to do this. Wawrinka, of course, beat Novak in the final of the US Open, I think back in 2016. And he has the kind of game, Wawrinka, he will make you feel the pain. He hits the ball very heavy. He's willing to go for a long time in these rallies. And as you say, Novak just wasn't up for it on the day, wasn't physically fit enough. He'd looked a little bit out of it earlier in the week, like he was struggling with his form and with an injury with his shoulder. And that kind of flared up again by the look to things in that match. And yeah, I think Stan is exactly the kind of player that will play himself into form this week. And so it makes sense to me that he posed a big threat to Novak.
Okay, Snize, let's start off. Number one, the governor, Roger Federer, 1.09 against Dimitrov at 10.25. Is it straight sets, Federer?
Yeah, I think it is. James actually previewed this match on the site, so you can check out that article over at oddsmarket.com. He did a great breakdown of the match there. Some key numbers that he did bring up was the fact that Dimitrov has only held 70.6% of the time versus Federer. Federer has held 95.2% of the time. The Swiss is a perfect 7-0 head-to-head and 16-2 in sets, and that speaks volumes, really. The Bulgarian, he's been resurgent this week. Then again, he's had a pretty easy draw. And the problem I have with Dimitrov is that he tends to retract into his shell. No matter how well he's playing, he tends to retract into his shell when he's facing the best of the best, as emphasized as his 5.35 record against Nadal, Djokovic, and Federer. So much like Goffin, actually, he's just a player that plays a similar type of tennis to the one that Federer does, trying to hit the ball early of both wings and just take an aggressive court position and dominate as soon as he can. The problem is Federer just does everything he does a lot better. So I've actually gone ahead and put max stakes on Federer minus 6.5 games. Got it earlier today at evens at Berrettini 5. I think that price still should be there, and that's a very good bet.
Yeah, and if you want to just go over to Odds Market, you can see James's detailed write-up on this game. I'm not going to ask you about Federer again, because obviously Snize has just quoted your word-for-word article, which has obviously educated him well, which is exactly what we want. Let's move on to Matteo Berrettini versus Gael Monfils. Berrettini 2.65, Monfils 1.57. I always think in tennis, when you've got a favourite that's better than 1.5, it's closer than the people actually think. Is that right, James?
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I think a lot of my value does tend to come from those type of situations where you have two players who actually, based on a few things, are probably very even, but the market, for whatever reason, decides to take a stronger stand on one of them. I think in this case, it's a little bit more difficult. The real clash here, I would say, is kind of like the firepower and the form of a player who's been exceeding pretty much all expectations this year, Berrettini, and then a player who has always, you feel, underperformed his talent in Monfils, but has actually generally been an incredibly consistent competitor against the lower ranked players. He tends to win where he should, and then often gets outclassed against the very best. So, I mean, I think Berrettini caused us a little bit of a grievance. He knocked out our 28-1 outright, who got down to 2-1 for the quarter and beat him in straight sets. A very, very impressive showing there. So I think he has every possibility to take out Monfils. I think what he will find against Monfils, unlike Rublev, is a very willing defensive player. I think Rublev was a little bit taken aback by how well Berrettini came out firing, whereas I think Monfils will be happy to absorb a lot of pace. He'll be happy to play these longer, more kind of grueling rallies. He'll be very gritty, I imagine, in this matchup. The big thing that goes in Berrettini's favor for me is that Monfils has some fitness concerns. I think still he's not someone who has looked 100% fit or 100% going for it this week. He was a very comfortable winner over Andreescu last round, though, so he may well have found himself in quite a nice position, really, for this quarter. But yeah, this is a difficult matchup for me. Very difficult one for me to call.
Snize, do you think this game goes deep?
Sorry, what was that question?
Do you think that this game goes deep? Do you think we're looking at 4 sets plus?
Yeah, I do. I actually looked at this matchup as well as one of my selections for tomorrow. And just a little bit of backstory on Matteo Berrettini. He's really burst onto the tour, maybe a new name to some. The slow climb to fame started last year. He was relatively unknown, took a set off Dominic Thiem, who went on to make the final last year French Open. He won a clay title in Gstaad and broke the top 50. And this year, he's just been amazing. Took a title in Budapest, took a title in Stuttgart without dropping a set. Came as a real dark horse at Wimbledon. Made it all the way to the last 16 before he was demolished by Federer. Then he's been out with an ankle injury, but obviously has kept up the same good form as we've seen previously from him this year, and they've been extremely impressive. The matchup against Rublev was just masterclass in spin variety and being able to throw off Rublev's biggest weapon, which is his lethal forehand. I was actually surprised to see him come through in straight sets, even though I was on him to win there. Monfils, on the other hand, one of the most electrifying players on tour, who, as James said, hasn't really quite reached his talent, both due to injuries and due to a lack of professional attitude in the past. But he has gotten both of those, at least relatively, on the injury front together this year, and has been rewarded with some great results. I've watched a lot of Monfils during this tournament, and he has mostly crushed opposition. He hasn't really faced a tough draw apart from Denis Shapovalov, and that was a 5-set match. Pablo Andreescu was brushed aside easily yesterday, but I did notice that Monfils was grabbing his left ankle, and that's a problematic area for him. He's been injured, he's been out because of it, so he was slightly hampered there, so it's a bit of an unknown with fitness again. But Berrettini just holds the serve about 90% of the time. He's a huge hitter. He has every weapon to be able to match the pedigree of Monfils here, and I feel it's a similar matchup to that one of Shapovalov, which is two big hitters that are going to sludge that together. So I expect long sets, and I went with the over 40.5 at 1.95 with Unibet.
Yeah, I mean, it screams over 40, over 40, over 41. Let's move on. Let's Diego Schwartzman versus Rafa. Surely this is Rafa's title now. I mean, you can't imagine that anyone's going to stop him. He's been in imperious form. James, Rafa just seems to have it for me.
Yeah, I think the big question mark for me is how Federer is going to play later end of this week. And I think if he can shake off the Wimbledon issues and continue what has been an increasingly impressive form this week, I feel like Federer has probably got as much of a chance as Nadal, but that's the big question mark. But in terms of the match with Schwartzman, I think almost certainly, yeah, you're correct. He's going to come through that match. The tip that I sent in the article, which will be up pretty soon for tomorrow, is Nadal 3-1, and a few reasons why. So the first one, the overall general reason why, is that Nadal has won 48 of his last 50 in this price range, and I think 21 in a row, price sub 1.2. He's very unlikely to lose this match. He's looked very good this week. So I'm not looking to directly oppose the Spaniard, but it's very important when you look at someone like Schwartzman to not be taken aback by his slight size. He is a fierce competitor, and he's very, very able to push the top guys. He's taken a set in 4 of his 8 matches against the big 3 since 2017. And in fact, he's lost to Nadal 3-1 in both of their slam matches since 2017. So I went for the 3-1 at 4.4. If you look at the general matchup, if you actually watch the matches, Schwartzman has basically been able to do the key thing against Nadal, which is take time away from that forehand. He plays well above his normal level, hits the ball bloody hard for someone that small, and he really pushes it on that forehand wing to really try and make Nadal uncomfortable because he has quite a long backswing on the forehand side. But what you found, both at the French Open, where he was absolutely blistering. He was playing incredibly well at the start of the French Open against Nadal, and then also at the Australian. In both of those matches, he was able to maintain that only for about a set. And once that set was over, he was quite unfortunate at the French, you could argue, because they had a rain delay. But in essence, what happened was Nadal then came back. Schwartzman burnt out a little bit, and Nadal was able to take back control. And I think, in essence, that's exactly what I expect to happen again today. Schwartzman's been very good this week so far, very clinical. He's not used too much energy, so I think he should be very up for this match. But it's just hard to see past Nadal, as you say.
Okay, just one word answer from the pair of you. We're going to, before we go on to the women, Nadal or Federer? James?
Massive Federer fan, so I'm going to go Federer.
Snize?
Federer, he's the clear value at the price, and I think he's actually favored now with the way this has opened up.
Yeah, I mean, okay, you're both going for Federer. Let's hope you have a bit more luck than you did with Djokovic, although it was injury rather than performance. Okay, the women's side. I think there's a few shocks to be coming here. Serena Williams, 1.22. Wang at 5. Snize, take me away. Upset or not?
I think there is the potential for this match to end in an upset, actually. I don't think you can just blindly believe that Serena's going to win this match, because Wang has been one of the stories of the tournament. Obviously took down Ashley Barty in the last round. The Chinese number 1 is incredibly tactically shrewd. She plays a very smart game. She studies a lot. She knows how to exploit her opponent's weaknesses. Against Barty, she showed that she was able to make the Aussie uncomfortable, able to put her out of a comfort zone and really push her and force her to stay in extended rallies and not be able to get out of it with her sliced backhand. So a really, really smart player, has a big strike zone, hits it well off both wings. She hasn't had a super tough draw prior to Barty, but she did obviously very well there. The thing is just, though, that when you face Serena, she is the greatest WTA player of all time, arguably. She has the pedigree. She has the game. She's shown this week that even if you can compete for a little bit, even if you can try to hang in there, it's just so tough to sustain with her till the end. She's won all but one matches in straight sets. That was when she started sloppily against the fellow American Katie McNally. Serena did roll her ankle in that match, her latest one, which was versus Peter Matic in the second set, but she's trained well, and the reports are that that ankle is fine. So considering that we shouldn't have any injury issues, I do think that Wang falls a little bit short here.
James, I look at this game or this match, and I think, does Serena's weakness, is it because she wants it after what happened last year in the final with Osaka? And is Wang's weakness the serve?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there with both of them, really. I think mental frailty is definitely an issue for Serena at the minute, both in terms of, as you say, specifically at the US Open, her home tournament. You can imagine she'll be quite nervous. But also, of course, she's lost, I think, now 4 finals in a row at slam level. So there's very much this sense that, she'll be feeling, am I losing it? Am I not able to maintain this? But when you then look at Wang, as you say, the big problem is her serve. I mean, in essence, she's a player who has a very, very solid baseline game, but has never really been able to push it at the top level. Kind of not that similar, I suppose, but similar in mentality to Azarenka, in that she was very much in a situation where she was trying to work players out, trying to work out, as Snize says, trying to do some research and think about what it is that's actually going to, Radvanska even, not Azarenka, being able to work out how they're playing and what she needs to do against them. And the thing with someone like Serena is that can only go so far. If Serena is able to serve you off the court and basically hit you off the court with very heavy, very powerful ground strokes, it's really hard to do much tactically against that. It's just very difficult.
Okay, let's move on. I'll stay with you, James. Bianca Andreescu, I believe we've both got futures bets on her against Elise Mertens. 1.66 for Andreescu, 2.7 for Mertens. Are you happy with your futures bet at the moment?
Yeah, with my quarter bet. I mean, I think Andreescu has just continued to be very impressive. I've not really seen signs yet of her diminishing at all. I think this is the kind of matchup where I would expect her to win, but I think the prices are about right. I'm not sure I'd want to get involved either way really here. But yeah, I'm certainly happy with her to win the quarter. I think, as we said at the time, it was a very obvious bet. It was a very nice spot for her, and it looks like she's likely to get it done.
Snize, what about you?
Yeah, so this is another matchup that I'm looking at. For those of you that have been following us throughout the entire tournament, really, you should be sitting on both an outright ticket on Bianca Andreescu to win the entire tournament at 17 and a ticket for her to win the quarter at 5.5. Definitely not hedging this. At this point, I've mostly exhausted everything there really is to say about Andreescu. All the superlatives are gone. She's just superhuman, simply stunning, absolutely brilliant. Future world number 1, current world number 9, and I dare say right now in current form the best player in the world on the hardcourt service. Yes, even better than Serena, I think. She only has 3 losses on the year, 39 hardcourt wins. The last loss came in March. That was non-retirement. She has 118% hold break stats. She's far outmatching Mertens in that category of 105%. The Belgian has been impressive herself, but her draw has been kind. She hasn't really faced any elite competitors. Now she faces one, a title contender, and the New York crowd will be firmly backing Andreescu in this match, make no mistake. And what I've looked at is that Mertens, she's only 6-13 in her career with his top 10 players, of which Bianca is one. And she's displayed a really, really poor 86.7% hold break ratio in those matches. So what that shows us is she has the tendency to not be able to contend with the best of the best. And I think that will be the case here today again. Bianca, I expect her to outmatch her with a complete game to perfection in front of a very supportive crowd and take a step closer to the outright title. So I've actually gone ahead and double dipped here. I bet her minus 3.5 games at 190. So I definitely do think she gets it done. Think she gets it done in straight sets. If not, as we've seen with Andreescu, she has the power to be extremely dominant in a set and still cover these kind of lines, even in free sets, as she did yesterday against Taylor Townsend.
Regardless of the wagers, I think if it goes pear-shaped today and she gets beat, there's going to be tears in the Snize household. I mean, if you were single, I'd be thinking that she's probably the next Mrs. Snize. I mean, I've never heard anyone talk about anyone with such fondness. You haven't got any scarves or anything in the house, have you?
Yeah. She is definitely a new favorite player of mine.
Really?
Potential wife in this nice household. Definitely gonna have to consider wifing her up at this point.
Love that.
Especially if she wins this tournament.
Yeah, well, listen, we're cheering her on. I mean, listen, I've got one that I'd go against. We're not going to cover it. I mean, I'll say it at the end. Blender Bencic and Donna Vekic. 1.61 Bencic, 2.5 Vekic. Is this the weaker of the three, James?
Yeah, so this is... So we also, I think both Snize and I have Bencic to win her quarter as well. At well, I think I took it at 9-1. I think Snize went in a little bit higher than that. So essentially, this matchup, I said in my article, if you are on Bencic, there's quite a few obvious reasons to think that Vekic, this is a decent place to hedge a little bit. I probably wouldn't be taking Vekic if I hadn't backed Bencic, just purely because Bencic played very, very well this week. And I think intuitively I would expect it to come through. But Vekic actually has better hold break total or service return points won total even over the last 12 months. She beat her in the only match they've played this year. She beat her comfortably at the French Open. And Vekic in general, I think she's won 9 of the last 18 over the past 12 months as an underdog. So she's very much in a position where she could threaten here. I don't think I would expect it on the immediate form. But yeah, I've gone ahead and had a two unit hedge on Vekic in case she manages to beat Bencic in this quarterfinal.
Okay, wrap it up for me. What's the best of the women's and the outright? Snize?
Best for the women's. I mean, it kind of would be an error on my part if not say Andreescu at this point. I really do think that she's just incredible right now. I really don't think Mertens is a threat. You just really want to say that she's going to win the title, and just flank in on this Bencic affair here. I think that she's actually better in every single category than what Vekic is, for reasons I can't disclose right now. But if you're curious, you can go ahead and contact me. But I'm actually going ahead and double down there. I think she wins in straight sets as well, and about her -2.5 games at 1.83.
James?
So I didn't really have a particularly strong feel on the women's side. As I say, I personally feel like Vekic, she opened at 2.37. She's drifted a little bit, which I think is basically based on this week's form. But as I say, I think if you look at the bigger picture, there's at least some reason to feel like this is a decent hedge spot. But I didn't have a particularly strong feeling in general in the women's, so I'm just going to stick with my hedge.
Okay, I've been impressed with Svitolina for what it's worth. Listen, lads, let's meet up in the semi-final. Let's hope that Andreescu is still there, flying the Snize family flag. And listen, boys, your work's just off the charts. Loving it. Keep it going. If you want to see what the boys are up to, then you can go and have a look at oddsmarket.com. And I'll speak to you both soon. Cheers, lads.